He not. Well, you see, sometimes things are utterly strange. It's a rather interesting kind of understanding of how you could perceive your surroundings, the strangeness, or I would say a sort of looking it through the prism of something that is alien to you, being not able to comprehend it. Like, imagine a dissociative situation where you observe very easy to comprehend things for you, which are, daily stuff, which is daily stuff for my house. And it starts to reflect itself in a totally different way, and the meaning actually starts to reveal itself an original one. Let's add some conspiracy to that, some little bit of paranoia, that you've been always taught that the meaning is this, and then it starts to change it. And it might even give this kind of a sinister flavor to it when it reveals itself. So I would say that art has its path like that. It really wants to be involved in humans' lives. Definitely, if we think about art as a separate form of a being, where you don't have a meaning which has been applied to that.
Ой, нихуя себе. Как там разрешалось рух.
All right. Well, hello again. The funny thing about making this kind of videos is all the time you have so much going on in your head, and this shit just, it kind of disappears when you're ready to execute the task you have put up yourself on, you know what I mean? And you're just like coming up on a spot with some weird shit because you had this impulse which were like, yeah, you do it, wow, you can do this now, this is so awesome. Yeah, and then you end up putting on a fucking ski mask and then installing, well, not like all the fucking audio connections, and then setting up the phone, looking after the environment so that it's a little bit like nothing is off, and you end up just talking about nothing because you forgot what you wanted to say. This is idiotic. it's a very lazy thing. That's what I do. It's a super lazy thing because I could have been really very professional about it, like extremely professional. Have this moment signed in a way, like this is the thing. It's like the process of it happens now. The way how the thing can be presented to someone, if it is for someone. That's the biggest question, like for whom is always this thing done? And I was, like as usual, just free thinking about that stuff. And you come to the conclusion that usually with art, it's all about getting into the mode of, like, you just fly into the endlessness, pretty much. Like, you try to achieve things that are like glimpses, and then you try to represent them in different forms, and the whole thing became such that everything that you do now is in a way something that you have dreamt of, probably, or maybe even wished upon for, and it just starts to represent itself. But because you didn't put on in the different, like, all the necessary whatever digits and consonants and what the fuck is going on there, you have to write down all these things and how you set it up, and you just messed it up in some formula because you didn't know how to do that. You know, you get what you get. And with art, the thing is that you go there and you just go and you just like, hello, what are you doing here? I open the door and they're just like, oh shit. And you close the door because you don't want to go there. And you go to the next one, and so on. And you just roam around the possibilities. It's a big metaphor. And with the metaphors and things like that, there has been a study how the language works and how we can connect and fulfill the space between what was said and what was meant. And like who said it, what's said, and what was meant is about you. And it's like this kind of a unspoken space, which also works with artworks. When you look at something and then there's this space between you and the artwork, which you fill in by whatever set of understandings you have got due to, let's say, your bringing up and all the background, history, traditions, and whatnot.
The moment, brother, just some small facts about it, because at the moment I realized that it's important to pay attention to something concrete, which I'm thinking about working on for a while, maybe a couple of years, on some topic that would automatically expand itself on other topics. But what I want to say is that if you look at the thing as an alien deity, and you would think about your surroundings, and you would think about things that happen, an additional layer of sort of questioning, and you would be like, well, why the fuck this should be like that only? If it may have some additional values to it, it might have some other probabilities of outcomes, and the inputs can be also variable. But that's the problem, that always people are afraid of things that not always have to do at all
anything with them. So I think it's a complex. It's like a big complex of things about ego, how you perceive yourself in the world. I was thinking about it quite a lot. I mean, if you think of yourself to grasp the angles, I was quite lazy when I was adjusting the settings. So let's be experimental here. If you ain't gonna see that, well, that's very unfortunate. But whatever you can see, it's this. I think I work in different styles. The other day I was going through this numerology thing, and according to my date of birth, I'm a 5, and also I'm a 9 because of my name. It's very complicated. I'm not quite sure how it's done, but apparently I'm a 5. So this 5 means that I have to be very creative, and also I have to be very adventurous, and very what's the word for that? Like there's going to be there has to be a lot of different things engaged. So I cannot do only one thing. So this is one of the styles that I draw in to the mystery land where I am right now. Even though if you watch some of my videos, you will know where I am, but sometimes I like to be this hectic, strange, very in a way maybe even flamboyant persona. But the saddest thing is that how much I wouldn't try to be a character. There's some 300-gram paper, really good. It's very good for gouache and for watercolors. I use them quite a lot if I'm working on this kind of like images that I do on paper. Unfortunately, because I think it's very humid here, and they go like this, like really just. Now this is also rather interesting. I think it's some sort of a witch figure. Yeah, and there were more elements here, but I covered them because I couldn't draw them properly. Sometimes I mess up the anatomy a little bit. Just like the funny thing about making things uncanny is that if you just slightly, even a dash of a millimeter, just somewhere, your eye can really spot the difference. It can be like, Jesus, this is uncanny.
Round like that, talk around like that. That's how the things are. If I'm behind the shadows, walking out, lurking out, doesn't mean that you're it's that easy out. When I talk to you, look what's here, happening in deep. I like that kind of shit.
Ideally, they use this kind of a brownish sepia, reddish color. Need to figure out what for. I'm not that educated in the field of practical, like technical usage of why exactly it was that. But I know why, because, well, I mean, I know why they use it on top of white, because it's easier for the paints not to show through. Like, for instance, when you're coloring a white background, you need to use a much more paint and, more detail, rather than when you have something of a different color, seamless, which is not that vivid, in contrast with, let's say, an underpaint. Like I have here, for instance, this layer is not done, so everything was like this. Everything was like the underpaint. I might also make a good B-roll out of it and just show some stuff out there. So the technique is pretty easy. I just think about different compositions which I think that I would like to draw. Let's say it's like postures and things, and just start to sketch them out, and I get this poster, and just pretty much gathering information first of all about how this particular thing would look like, find it, and then just draw it. It takes several attempts to draw properly. Sometimes it can go smoothly, sometimes it just needs some calculations and be more attentive. There are some tricks that you can use by measuring things. You can either use a pencil, or sometimes if you're feeling super lazy like I do most of the time, you just use the paper, like just make marks on the paper and then do that. You can also make measurements one-to-one. For instance, you can make your sketch ready online, like somewhere in the software that you use, and then you can make marks one-to-one, meaning like a grid, and then you fill in the grid. It's one of the most popular, and I would say easiest way how to do things, because you add additional layer of comprehension. I do that sometimes, but most of the time I just put the objects on the canvas. Yeah, so this is it. And I think I get influenced. This one was influenced quite hard by existential and phenomenological philosophy, mainly by Sartre and by Heidegger, those two guys. This shows alienation. It shows you being thrown in the world. This shows how you are reflecting yourself towards life, how there is the nothingness and you stare at it. The feelings of alienation against, well, like you're born by yourself and you are by yourself in the world. There is the concept of ill fate, where you don't know what you're doing pretty much and you're just left by yourself. And also there is the concept of authenticity, if you think. The concept where you probably are just emphasizing yourself in life as a being that took it all. Like, you're not afraid of death anymore, so that's why you can be authentic all the time, which is a pretty interesting idea. Like, you go back and to love and fear, because fear of the unknown is the most irrational state that you can be in.
If we go back to alienation and authenticity, then you could see that the figure's isolation evokes those themes of alienation. and which existentialists like Sartre and Heidegger discuss. The individual's alienation from society and from the world can be seen as a result of realizing the inherent absurdity of existence. And the barren, perhaps representing the eternal world, suggests the alienation that comes with recognizing the emptiness of existence without imposed meaning. In Heidegger's terms, this could also reflect the move towards authenticity. Like in solitude, the figure has stepped away from distractions of the everyday and is by sitting on a chair and staring at nothingness. So I guess I go.
And sometimes I go into the state of fear because it's really hard to always be walking on eggshells with things in life. There always will be something that would try to reach out to you, and try to grab you out of some sort of a state that you have put yourself into. So being authentic keeps you, not being afraid of things, and especially of not being afraid of death, keeps you authentic, keeps you in the form of not being afraid of expressing yourself how you see things. I think it goes both ways, like into the good side and the bad side as well. Polarization might be of a big issue. This comes from like this whole polarization and the aspects to it, the left and right side. These are very heavy topics to comprehend, not by explaining the polar sides and trying to tell what is good or bad, more like explaining how to just acknowledge the fact that they are those polarities, and trying not to be neat in the low soil. So you can add something else. I don't know if you want to do that, but I found it interesting. Like, it comes from the concepts of magic and things like that. It's one of the philosophies, pretty much, how you perceive life, and you just take yourself out of the equation all the time and go inside, go outside. It's trickstery and cheating, but it's like just one of the ways that you do. And I think being an artist is one of the perks of living like that, because if you know history of an artist and the word of etymology, how the artists have been developing throughout history, from a person that was just hiding in a very dark room and rewriting and redrawing some scriptures, a totally uneducated fella, gloomy and dark and very dirty, to the person who was hanging out with kings and queens and making whatever pieces of creations for gods themselves and recreating different evangelic moments, to the point of drinking with God, like in the avant-garde period Malevich would do. And now where we are like living in a kind of signed simulation, that we know that this is in the world of, I'm always mispronouncing his surname, Jean Baudrillard, I think would be correct. I need to say it more confidently. Jean Baudrillard. I need to find the way how you pronounce him. So in his life, or in Zygmunt Bauman's world, I think I pronounce his name also correctly. Or be it Frederick Jameson in his explanation of capitalism. So we know now where we're living, and we are artists in this kind of environment where you can be a hedonist artist, pretty much just doing nothing and expressing yourself mostly on absurdity, which also is depicted here, because Sartre is talking about absurdity of life and how you cannot pinpoint anything because there is only the moment. The funny thing about this whole discussion is that there is only this moment. There is no yesterday, no tomorrow. I'll be coming back to this point often, because it's really very hard to grasp the now.